In this video, I'll be talking about how you can achieve a synthwave cyberpunk look simply by following this recipe. Hey, what's up guys? K7 Paints here, welcoming you to my very first video. This video will be the start of an in-depth series guiding you through some of my steps I've taken along the way so that you can achieve this cool, sexy synthwave look. In this first part of the series, we will be focusing on how to do the holographic chrome areas as seen on these pictures, and also the theory behind it, so you as a painter can take this recipe and use it on any mini of your choice. But before we start, I just want to say a massive thank you to all those people on Instagram who supported me on this project so far. Without your support, I wouldn't be making any of these videos. So if you're new to the channel or you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, then do hit it now, and don't forget the notification button as well, so you'll be notified when I post another video within the series. Okay, firstly, I'm going to take you through the theory behind this look. If you want to get straight to the point, straight to painting, then skip ahead. I've also placed the timestamps below in the description box so you can jump straight to there. However, I do recommend you sticking with me here so that you can better understand the fundamentals of this style and that you will be able to pretty much adapt this style to any mini of your choice. So to get this unique style, we will need to understand at least two important points. One, colour, and two, being the form. As you can see, these are the range of colours I've used so far when I was doing the Ghost Kill legs. If you Google the synthwave cyberpunk, you're pretty much greeted to some amazing range of colours. Magentas, bright blues, vivid greens, and purples. So these are going to be our colours that we're going to be using during the process. Now we will be specifically hitting the holographic areas of the mini, so the parts that will pop more against the darker areas. If you Google holographic film on cars, like what I did for instance, you'll notice the colours are completely the same from the ones I've just spoke about. Most specifically the magentas, blues and purples. Now, if you're like me and you have been sticking to a certain set or chapter, then this may feel a bit daunting. We can get comfortable with using the same go-to paints as we get stuck into an army. This can be good for efficiency, however, it can also create a nice comfort bubble, making us hesitant when we're trying out new colours. For me, it was red. For you, it may be green or even yellow. And if you have a full army, then I guarantee you will have many shades of the same colour. But stick with me here. If you have fun with these new colours that we're going to be using, I guarantee you'll be surprised by the results. Now this pretty much depends on what you're painting. For me, it was pretty much streamlined to metal and chrome since I'm working with a towel suit. Now you can adopt this to pretty much to anything, power armor or even a carapace on a Tyranid. So we're pretty much good there. So I'm painting mine on my favourite looking towel suit, the Ghost Kill. I wanted a holographic feel to certain places that make the Ghost Kill pop, like the head, the top of the legs, the feet, and certain parts of the arms, in which creates a lot of interest in the mini itself. If it was all the same all over, then it'll pretty much look like Robocop on acid. So identify these spots first on your mini before we begin. Now to do this, we need to understand how chrome and holographic colours work on surfaces. Now there are tons of NMM videos, so non-metallic metal videos, tutorials on YouTube, and I highly suggest you taking the time to have a look at those and understand how we can replicate this effect with the paints that we've chosen. For me, I simply use references. Today I'm using a reference I found on the internet of a car wrapped in holographic film. Its corners emulates the pauldron of the arm of the Ghost Kill, and I'm painting, which will be great to use as a blueprint as I go back and forth. I noticed that a lot of the surfaces facing upwards were either light pink or light blue in colour. Then these shifted to its opposite colour in a gradient, whether that would be pink or blue. And this was all broken up with white harsh lines, as are called hotspots, or even dark tones of the same colour, as you can see here as an example. However, in this video I'll be covering hard edges and also round surfaces, which should suffice for most minis. So this will cover the round surfaces on a Space Marine, and then the hard edges on whether that would be on a gun or even a Tau suit as well. I've listed the paints here, so we've got the Citadel and AV model colours, so it'll aid you in finding out which ones you're going to need for this tutorial, but you can use any of the colours as an alternative. So I used the Mechanicus standard grey for Primer Mini. Thought this was a good balance between the light and dark areas. You can use any alternatives such as white or dark, like black colours. However, do be aware that you may need to put multiple layers on to reach the same effect. So I mainly used two brushes for this process. The first one here, the Element Games character series. This was great for layering up different paints onto the Mini. And then the second one, the Artis Opus 00 series, was for finer details. Another recommendation, find something that you can prop your Mini on. For me, using the arm, it's going to be quite tricky to hold, so I use a cork and some blue tack, as you can see here, and I just stick it on. You can buy the more expensive stuff. I know that Citadel do some handheld sort of props so you can hold your Mini on. These are great, but I just found a cork lying around the kitchen and it seemed to work fine for me. This just helps with less shaking and it gets you more crisper lines later on in the process. Okay, let's paint. So to start off, we're going to start using the Wraithbone base layer paint. This will be great to start as a foundation underneath our ivory and our white colours later on. Do beware if you are using a more darker primer, such as like a black, Chaos Black or something like that, you may have to put several layers of this Wraithbone down first. So after a few layers, you should have a nice clean Wraithbone coat over your areas, and now I'm just finishing up here now on the round edges the minute. So here I'm using Abaddon Black paint to fill in my recesses as a wash. You can use Nuln Oil, just beware you may need to use several layers of washes of Nuln Oil to reach sort of a rich black look inside the recesses. If you are going to start using the paint like I am here, just be aware you need to water this down quite a lot. I probably go to about 4 parts water to 1 part paint, and just keep putting it into the recesses, and just be careful of going over the Wraithbone. Also, as you can see, I'm using the finer brush as well, just so I can get in between the recesses. Using a finer detail brush here, it does help, as well as preventing you from going over onto your Wraithbone. Now that we have a nice coat of Wraithbone, we're going to lighten that areas up now with some Ivory. This is going to be great now to lift the area up so we can get a nice light pink layer on top of this, and then gradually get that into more of a whiter colour. So as you're finishing up, just have a quick look over your ivory areas. Just make sure you haven't got any black showing over it, creeping over onto the white areas. And you may need to just brush over this with some Wraithbone and then go over with some ivory. So now we're going to start some colour to the Mini. The first colour we're going to use is the Fulgrim Pink. This is nice, rich, light, vibrant pink that we've chosen here. And this is going to lift up the top of the areas to give us that sort of holographic look. So we're going to start to apply this to the areas that are mostly up facing towards the sun. So you can use this, or you can go for a more blue colour if you want to challenge yourself that way, like I've done on my previous models. But I've noticed that a lot of the holographic sort of look uses the pink, sort of like pink colour. So as you can see here, I'm slowly brushing that pink towards the edge, and I'm also going back to the ivory. This is just so I can get a nice gradient from the ivory, which is on the far edge, going down, nice transit to the pink as it hits the edge where it starts to slope downwards. So hopefully you'll have a nice gradient like this, going from ivory to Fulgrim Pink. If you're concentrating more on the round edges, I'm going to go straight onto that now so you can get an idea. It's the same method, however, we're going to be going from Fulgrim Pink on either side of the round edges as you look at it, going inwards into the ivory. So the ivory is going to be in the centre, this is going to be the focal point. So I'm going to be using the blue violet from Model Colour paint here, just to use as a darker purple. You can use the Citadel Gene Stealer purple as an alternative, but any darker purple paint will do. All we're doing now is we're just creating a nice solid line from the Fulgrim Pink to the ivory. So you're going to be placing this from where your Fulgrim Pink ended and butted up against the ivory on the edge there. As you can see, I'm using the fine detail brush there just to make a nice crisp sort of gradient from the Fulgrim Pink down to the darker purple. And as you can see here, I'm starting to put on the darker purple and the blue violet on the side of the cylindrical sort of shape. Now this is what you want to be doing on your thighs or any round edges. So you want to start off on the deeper side of it with your blue violet or your Gene Stealer purple, and then you want to slowly start to wash it into that Fulgrim Pink. As you can see there, I'm slowly going back to that Fulgrim Pink, and I'm just going back and forth between the two purples so I can get a nice gradient. For the next step, we're going to be using the Citadel Lothern Blue. This is a nice light blue. It's not going to be too vibrant, and it's going to work really well with the ivory. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using a tint of the blue into some ivory. So we're going to probably be using about 4 parts ivory to 1 part Lothern Blue. And as you can see, the blue is just slowly creeping in there. There's not a lot to it, and we want it just to have that sort of blue haze onto it. The reason for doing this is so that when we start to use the crisper whites, they will pop more, and this just makes it a great foundation later on when we start grading the darker blues. So now we're going to start applying the blue, same way we did on top. Now we're going to do it in the center. So on you, if you're doing the round surfaces, we want to start applying that same sort of layer, the same sort of consistency, and the same ratio of paints in the center of your ivory. So now the next step is we're going to start to introduce more of that blue into the mix. So we can start to see now there's going to be more of a deeper blue towards the edge where it meets the deeper colours of the pink on the edges. For the guys out there who are doing the round edges, what we want to do is we want to do the same. However, we want to start to butt up the darker blue against the lighter pink. So later on, as you see in the video, you'll start to notice that you'll go from the violet blue to the Fulgrim Pink, and then to the deeper Lothern Blue, and then into the light blue. So now you should have something similar to this. So as you see on the round edges there, the Lothern Blue should be all in place, with the darker Lothern Blue butting up against the Fulgrim Pink. Now I'm just kind of carrying on the side of the shoulder gauntlet. So as the shape starts to curve down towards the ground, the colour is going to get deeper and deeper. So now we're going to be using one of my favourite paints, and that is Sotek Green. This is a nice, vibrant, rich colour, and it's great for glazing as well. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to start to introduce a nice crisp line against the white line that's going to be on the edge of the armor. So hopefully you found where your edge is, where you've been butting up that dark deep purple against the edge. What we're going to do is we're kind of going to give that a little gap of ivory. So as you can see there, I've left a nice white line of ivory, and I've just created a line of Sotek Green. Next up, we're going to be using a mid-tone sort of blue, and that's going to be Templeguard Blue. This is going to be our gradient to help us to go from that ivory Lothern Blue to the deep, rich Sotek Green. So as you can see here, I'm starting to apply it towards the middle of the gauntlet from where I want it to gradually go from Sotek Green down to a lighter blue. And this is going to be the same sort of steps as we've done before. So we're going to go back and forth from the Sotek to the Templeguard and to the Lothern Blue, so we can get a nice gradient down from a dark, deep greeny blue down to a light blue. And hopefully you should have something similar to this. You should have a nice deep rich greeny blue gradient on the side of the armor. And for the round edges we're going to do the same thing. However, where we stopped with the darker Lothern Blue, we're now going to go over that with the Sotek Green. So we're going to create a transition from the center to the Sotek Green, where it's going to butt up against that Fulgrim Pink. I've just paused the video here for you so you can get an idea of where you need to be at this stage. So as you can see on the cylindrical, we've gone from a nice gradient from the darker purples to the lighter pinks, and then we've done a harsh line of Sotek Green, and then going from there to Templeguard and then Lothern Blue. Same again on the pauldron, but we're just being aware that the upper surfaces facing the sun needs to be pink, and the other surfaces that are sloping towards the ground are going to get deeper in blue. Okay, this next step is going to be for the hard edges and more on rectangular surfaces, just like with what we've got here on the pauldron. So what we're going to do is we're going to create, instead of a nice crisp white line, we're going to create more a organic sort of feel to it, more random, more of a natural feel, so it feels like a landscape is shimmering on the surface. To do this, we're going to go to our Sotek Green and back to our deep purples, and we're going to basically go along that line and create that line into more of a squiggle. So it's going to meander across that surface as opposed to being a nice straight line. And hopefully you should have something similar to this. As you can see, gives it a nice natural look, and it makes it a bit more organic as well. Okay, keeping to them hard edges then, all we're going to do now is we're going to go back to where we did the deeper blue on the side of the edges, and now we're going to give it a bit of a tint of purple. You can use any purple for this, but I've been using some of the magenta, some of the Sotek Green, and a bit of a mix really between purples and Sotek Green to give it a different look. The idea behind this is you don't really want to put colours, the same colours, two together. As you can see there, we've got the Sotek Green going into the light blue. We've also got the light blue on the sides, so we want to kind of give it a bit of a juxtapose feel. So we're going to be mixing up two separate colours next to each other. So subtleness is key, so hopefully you'll have something similar to this, where we've got the nice little shades of purple towards the end. Really does give it a nice natural feel with different colours added on there. Now this next step is probably one of my favourite parts. You can get creative with this. There's no set way of doing this, you can just have fun with it. So the idea is now we're going to start to create these white lines on top. Now they're not all going to be connected, we're just going to do random lines going down the centre and then towards the side of the cylindrical shape. The way we're going to do this is we're going to go to our Lothern Blue and some Ivory, but we want to do a bit more Ivory than Lothern Blue, so we're probably going to do about 3-4 Ivory to 1 Lothern Blue. As you're going down making these lines, just be aware of the consistency of your paints. Make sure they're nice and thin, especially when you're using a white paint. It does tend to clump up when it's not hydrated enough, so do make sure you've got a nice consistency, thin paint. You may have to go through this a few times in terms of layers, and just stick with it, have fun with it, and just be creative. Okay, for the next colour, it's going to be White Scar. This is going to be the whitest we're going to go now. I found White Scar to be a really good white paint. Very vibrant, very crisp. Out of all the paints that I've been using so far. You can also use ceramic as well, ceramic white. But I found White Scar to be, well, personally I found it to be quite good. So what we're going to do is, again, nice, thin, watered down paint, especially with using white. And we're going to go over the edges and make them pop a bit more. So like what you've probably done before in terms of edge highlighting, we're going to edge highlight the areas, and also we're going to go in the center of our white spikes, our white lines that we did before with the ivory and the blue, and we're just going to lift them just that tad a bit more by introducing some ceramic white in the center. Also, I'm going to go back to that white squiggly line that we did before, and carefully I'm going to go over the ivory with the white ceramic. This is going to make it pop that little bit more, especially against the dark purple and the Sotek Green. So as you can see here, I'm highlighting all the blue areas with White Scar, just true white colours. And then on the purples, I'm highlighting with a mix of White Scar and Pink Fulgrim. So now we're going to carry on with the edges, but this time we're going to introduce Fulgrim Pink with a bit of White Scar as well. So we're going to mix the two together. Once we've got a nice watery consistency, not too watery, probably 50-50, we're going to start to go along the purple edges. So as you can see there on the barrel of the gun, where the violet purple, violet blue is at the bottom of it, we're going to start to go around the edge there, and also where the purple meets the blue around the top as well. Next we're going to be using this rich blue, dark Prussian blue, and we're going to be using this on the very sides of the model. So this is going to be the deepest sort of parts of it before the colour drops off. So as you can see here, on the very side of it, where there's going to be hardly any light hitting it from above, we're going to be using a dark blue, and we're going to create a harsh line between the purple and the blue there. We're also going to be using it underneath the gauntlets, on the side of the gauntlets as well. As you can see here, slowly working my way around the edges of the gauntlets, just making sure we're covering up all that graze. As I went around with the blue, I did start to overlap on some of the edges, so what I've done is I've gone back to my White Scar and I'm just going over all them edges on the blues. As you can see here, I'm just starting to go on the horizontal lines and on the very far corners. Okay, at this point I'm just going to showcase the mini of how it should be looking at the moment. So you should have some nice gradients, some nice edge highlighting on the pinks and on the blues, and you should be ready for the next step. Okay, so for the next part, we're going to go back to our Fulgrim Pink and a mix of white scar, and this is going to be the final touches to our project so far. So what we're going to be doing is create hotspots. So if you've done any research on any references, you'll notice a lot of sunspots. So basically white blobs, white circles, basically reflections of sunlight in the deeper parts of colours on the metals. So as you can see here, I'm just slowly introducing the Fulgrim with the white. I haven't gone too much with the white so far. I've gone probably 4 parts pink and 1 part ivory, a white scar, and I'm just stippling the area. So stippling is a technique that you can use, and all you're doing is basically dabbing. It's just a fancy word of dabbing the paintbrush onto the surface, and all you're doing here is essentially leaving pigments of paint on the surface every time you apply pressure. So as we're doing this, as it dries, we're going to slowly increase the intensity of the white by adding white scar to the mixture each time. And as you do this, you'll start to notice a nice shade of white coming to the forefront. In the very center of the circle, the hotspot that you're creating, we want to put a pure white scar blob right in the middle of it, just to really lift it out and make it pop. So we're going to do the same thing now on the blue area. So I'm going back to the Templeguard Blue as well as the Sotek Green and stippling the colours and gradually introducing that white scar into the mix. I've also used this sort of way of creating hotspots on the opposite side of the pink. So as you can see, I've done the hotspot on the right hand side and I've done the blue hotspot on the left hand side. That way it creates a bit of balance and also a bit of interest into the mini as well. So I've gone back to the blue violet and the dark Prussian blue, and I've used a mix of 50-50. Going back and forth here, but I felt like the purple wasn't popping enough. So what I've done is I've just gone down towards where the deep edges were. So where we stopped with the blue violet on the sides, I've gone over with a glaze of this 50-50 blue Prussian, dark blue, and the purple as well. This may take you some time. It took me a while just to get the gradient right. I felt like I didn't really get it. I probably need a bit more time to do this. Just be patient with it and just keep glazing away, keep chipping away at it. Add more purple if you want to dilute it down, add more blue if you want to darken it up, but you want to get a nice transition between the two. And also you can see I've gone over the bits on the gauntlet as well. So where I've put in that shade of blue, I've glazed it with some of that dark blue as well, just to enrich that area that bit more. Because we've gone over that blue, we might have crept over onto them nice crisp edge highlighting we did earlier. So I'm going to go back in there with Fulgrim Pink and the white, and I'm going to go down the edges of the gun and reapply that edge highlighting again, just so that it can pop that little bit more. And here you go. This is the end result of the holographic technique that we've been using and all the colours that we've used. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I do encourage you to stay tuned for part 2, where we'll be going into the darker colours, basically the parts that I've left grey here, and we're going to be finishing off our project in the cyberpunk synthwave style. Bye for now.